when a man, if you want the payoff in the relationship, a man being spiritual with his wife has an incredible and direct sexual benefit. Now, there's one of the most recent pieces of research that I read, and I'll quote the source. It's Sex in America, a definitive survey. And they report, what I've seen in many other studies, the most sexually satisfied couples and the most orgasmic women are Christians and married. And survey after survey, study after study shows the same thing. See, there's this stereotype that basically says that the best sex is among swinging singles or people who are out there and unattached and just, doing whatever they want to do. It's the opposite. People who are single and sexual have the least sex and the worst sex of anybody. The most sexually satisfied people are married Christian people because there's a spiritual component to sex. Let me say this. You'll never get the most out of it until you do what the manufacturer meant for it to be done. If it's your car, if it's a shovel in your garage, if it's a weed eater, if it's a, whatever it is, if you don't do what the manufacturer designed for it to do, you're not going to get the most out of it. God created sex as the covenant seal and sign for marriage. Now, marriage is a covenant. A covenant means that it's a sacrificial relationship. You don't make a covenant, you cut a covenant. Marriage is a covenant. We've turned it into a contract. A contract protects my rights and limits my responsibilities. It is a shallow, legal, human arrangement. A covenant surrenders my rights and assumes responsibilities. I'm in this thing for keeps, baby, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do us part. I'm in this thing to the end. This is a sacrificial covenant relationship. And the covenant seal of marriage is sex. It's how you consummate the covenant that you make. And by the way, when God created the covenant of marriage, He cut Adam. He paid a price to be married. And the best marriages in the world are covenant relationships. And you have sex on your wedding night to consummate it. Sex is the only unique feature of marriage. It's the only thing that we do that we shouldn't do with anybody else. We spend money with other people, we talk with other people, we have fun with other people, but sex is the only unique feature. And sex is the regular covenant sign of marriage that shows I'm operating in good faith. This is something that spiritually brings us together. And just as when God saw the covenant between He and Abraham's descendants, God kept His promise and He released the blessing. And just as when God sees a believer having communion and keeping the faith with a clear conscience, He releases the blessing. When God sees a married couple having an exclusive sexual relationship and you come together and have sex, there is the releasing of a blessing that God gives that He gives in no other way. Sex is not just an animal physical act that many in our society are trying to make it, reducing it simply to two people rubbing their bodies against each other to get the right result. Sex is the combining of spirit to spirit in such a way that it releases a unique blessing in the relationship that we can get in no other way. It is spiritual. And when we understand that our marriage is sacred and sex is sacred, we ought to have fun having sex. I mean, Christian people ought to be the most free people in the world within the parameters of what God says, because the parameters are there to protect us, not to keep us from having fun. It's like a fence. When you crawl over the fence, you get hurt. And God puts the big fence there so we can have sex in many different ways, but we understand this is a sacred thing that we're doing, and it is a sign of good faith. I'm keeping this to you alone, and every time I'm doing it, what I'm saying is I'm committed to you in this relationship. This is a sign of my love to you and the fact that I'm still committed to this relationship. And that's why through your 70s and your 80s and your 90s, it still is an important feature of the marriage relationship. It's because God created it as the covenant seal and sign. So when you respect your spirituality, you need to pray together and pray about sex. When we bring our sexuality, good and bad, to Jesus, everything gets better. With that. And we begin to pray together as a couple. Now let's listen to me. The number one enemy of sex is stress. And prayer takes away stress. It creates trust, and it creates the deepest level of intimacy you can have as a couple. And so when we're talking about striking the sexual match, we're not just physical people. We're body, soul, and spirit.
Thank you for joining us. Experience the life-changing series Sex, Love, and Communication on CD or DVD. Follow your interests and get social by connecting with Jimmy and Karen and the Ministry of Marriage Today on Twitter. Marriage Today's latest book, Lifelong Love Affair, is an essential tool couples can turn to again and again for inspiration and strength. Order your copy today. Become a rock-solid partner today and equip yourself with the tools you need for a successful marriage. $14, $28, or $56 per month. Choose the partnership level that's right for you. Become a rock-solid partner today.